So what we want to do in laying this thing up for the summer, or any small engine going into storage for more than a couple of months of not being used, is we want to drain the crankcase oil and replace it with fresh oil. We want to drain the fuel system. We want to drain the fuel tank, the fuel line, and we want to drain the carburetor bowl. We don't want any gas sitting in there because it'll evaporate and it gums up. What's left is like, turns into gum. It's like there's stuff on the back of a sticker, and it's inside the carburetor, which has a lot of moving parts like floats and needle valves and stuff like that. And it's going to require going in for service, because when you need it, when you depend on it, when it snows and you go to start it up, it's not going to start. Because when you need it, it's not going to start. And not only is it not going to start, it's going to require service. So the best thing, the prudent thing, is to take proper maintenance and drain that fuel system, the tank, the lines, and the fuel bowl on the carburetor. And they have set these small engines for snowblowers, they set them up to be drained out. The fuel line's easy to get to, both ends. The carburetor bowl is easy to get to. There's a little tickle valve underneath it. It's easy to drain. And the fuel tank's easy to drain. So we're going to go over that. We're going to show you how to do it. I'm going to try to make an informative and entertaining tape for the YouTube community, so that your snowblower will be ready to go next. We're going to start off by checking the tires for proper inflation. I have a tire pressure gauge with me, although it's not completely necessary on something like a snowblower tire, because you're not really going down the highway at 70 miles an hour where a blowout could kill you or injure some innocent person driving next to you. If I didn't have a tire pressure gauge, I could just check that there's indeed air in the tire. We don't want this thing sitting on a flat tire all summer, because the tire is going to get a flat spot in it and it's going to get cracks and wrinkles around it. So we want the tires inflated. So I simply remove the tire stem cap and I put my pressure gauge on it and I get a reading, and I got about 15 pounds of pressure, American system, or about 65 in the European system. And I'm going to check on the side of the tires. They always put the recommended inflation, and they're recommending a maximum of 20. So I got 15 in this one. It's just fine. And you also notice I got chains on my snowblower tire, and chains on snowblower tires rule. As a self-propelled snowblower, you hit the lever and this thing moves. The chains definitely help with the gription. They were inexpensive. I just basically searched the tire size on the internet and ordered them. And chains are a good thing. These chains are as old as a snowblower, probably about 10 years old. Although there's wear on them, they're ready to go for the next 20 years. Chains is something that doesn't wear out. But chains are a definite bonus on a snowblower. I would highly recommend tire chains on anybody's snowblower. Recommend it. Any self-propelled snowblower, chains are going to be a definite bonus. You find the size of the tire on the side, and you do a simple Google search with the tire size and the keyword tire chain, and shop, see what's available, and order them up. It's a definite bonus. They're easy to put on, and once they're on, they just stay there, and they really help a lot. Oh, that's just great. I got 15 pounds of pressure in both tires. Here's the engine oil, a dipstick to check your engine oil level. And if we can get a shot on that. This oil's clean because I changed it in the fall. But we're checking the level now and it's fine. A discharge chute that works with this simple crank here. And we're going to be sure to like spray silicone the linkage. And we're doing a quick visual inspection of the discharge chute gears here. Everything looks in order. Here's your auger blade. We're doing a visual inspection of that. Make sure there's no cracks or anything stuck around string or twine or newspaper bag stuck around the auger. There's the second stage of the snow blower. And that's like paddle blades that spin around really quick. I'm going to show you a shot of that later on. Doing an inspection of that. And here's our shoes that keep the height of the scraper blade down there at the correct level. I've actually in the past brazed a new piece on this one, as you can see, because the old one wore out. And that's what's left of the old one. I actually brazed this piece of cold rolled, 3/4 inch cold rolled steel on there. That worked out pretty good. Coming around this side here, there's a little surface rust on spots that I have touched up over the years with a rust preventative paint. Not going to mention the name because I'm not getting paid. And this tire and chains, everything's looking good. The one problem I've had over the years is there's a shear pin on the axle inside the bottom cover there, and that's to keep the actual axle from breaking if there's problems. The theory is the shear pin will break before the stresses break the axle. And I've snapped a number of shear pins, and I actually have some spares. I made sure I ordered spare shear pins. So in mid-snowstorm, if I have a shear pin problem, I have spares. But I have in the past used nails in lieu of a shear pin with some success. And YouTube users will notice I have moved the snowblower, and I put it on a piece of old cardboard box, getting ready to drain the fuel and oil because I don't want to mark up my garage floor. At this point, we're going to remove the spark plug. We're going to check the gap. We're going to clean it with a wire brush. We're going to check the gap and reinstall it. So carefully, I'm going to grab the boot and gently shaking it, I'm going to pull it off. I don't want to break the wire or anything, so I want to be careful with that. There's our spark plug. I'm using a 13/16 deep socket. And again, lefty loosey, righty tighty. So lefty is counterclockwise. Here we go. And once you get it, the plug cracked, in other words, you free up the threads, she'll come right out. Here's our plug with a little piece of debris on it. Wait for that focus. There we go. Now we're going to check the gap, and the gap is the space between the electrode and the ground, and that's where the spark jumps that actually ignites the fuel air mixture in the combustion chamber. On this engine, which is a Teshmoosh, like 9 horsepower, the spark gap is 0.030. So I slip my gap in there, and there just should be a little resistance, no free play, and you should be able to get it in there, and that gap is good. Taking a wire brush, we're going to clean her up. I want to clean the threads on the side here. I want to clean the threads. I want to clean the electrodes and get any gunk that's on there. I want to clean it off. That way I don't have to replace the plug, which is probably like $7 or $8 for one of these plugs. But if I clean it up, I could just keep using it and using it until it really goes bad, and at that point I would have to replace it. But this plug is fine. Upon inspection, it's fine. It just needs a cleaning up. Then I'm also going to clean it in the exposed areas, and just to make sure she's nice and clean. And this is optional, but you can use a little anti-seize lubricant, which is commercially available stuff. It's pretty messy, so you want to be careful with it. And I think it's basically like ground up lead, which is a very soft metal, mixed with some kind of petroleum product there. And you want to get that on the threads. A dab will do you. Now it's time to reinstall the spark plug. Carefully put it in its hole, and you want to be very sure that you got it going straight in, so you're not going to put the wrench on yet. You're going to finger tighten it. If it doesn't go in, it's cross-threaded. That's very bad. You want to back it out and try again. See, that would be cross-threaded. If I put a wrench on here and put this in, I would do serious damage to the engine. It would be a very expensive repair. So I'll back it out and make sure it goes in like almost all the way, finger tight, and you know you're good. You're not cross-threading it. We're going to put the socket back on. And we're going to give it like a quarter turn to snug it up. There we go. Not too tight, but you don't want it too loose. So here we go. Now I'm going to put the boot back on, and I'm going to make sure there's like a metal clip up inside there. I'm going to make sure it snaps and clicks right onto that plug there. Our spark plug maintenance is done on this small engine. Let's move on to the next step. Our next step is draining the motor oil and replacing it with clean oil. Now for draining the engine oil, we want to loosen up the filler cap so we don't create a vacuum and the oil flows out nicely out of the drain. In this particular engine, the drain, this nut off of this extended pipe, which they've extended the pipe past the base of the snowblower to make it easy for users to drain the oil. I'm using like a 8-inch adjustable wrench and make sure it's snug on there. And again, lefty loosey, righty tighty. And I'm going to remove the oil cap. Now this engine, I changed the oil in the fall to get ready for the winter. This oil is perfectly good. It only has about 10 minutes of use on it because we hardly had any snow this winter. So I'm not actually going to drain the oil today, but I'm going to show you how to do it. I have taken a laundry soap container, empty, and I've cut it down into a flat pan. And I'm going to put that directly under our oil drain fitting. And then if I were actually planning on draining the oil, I would remove that nut. I would let the engine oil drain. Perhaps towards the end I would tilt the machine back a little to get every possible drop of used engine oil out. I would set her back down, put that cap back on there, and clean this up with a rag, and then tighten it until it's snug. Then I would proceed to fill the crankcase to the recommended level with 5W30 weight engine oil. Now my next step in this summarizing the snowblower project is going to be to drain the fuel system, the tank, the fuel line, and the carburetor float bowl. First, I like to put a little fuel stabilizer in the tank. Run the engine so that the solution of fuel with the stabilizer in it goes through the entire fuel system, the hose, the carburetor float bowl, and starts getting burned in the engine. Then I will drain the fuel out of the fuel system. Now you might ask yourself, well, why doesn't he just put stabilizer in the fuel system and let it sit all summer that way? Well, let me tell you, as we discussed earlier, after a couple of months, fuel, gasoline, degrades, becomes unusable, becomes all gummed up, and it's going to clog up your whole fuel system, requiring a major service call. Fuel stabilizer will extend that few months that the gas lasts to maybe 6 or 7 months, but it's certainly not going to take it over to the whole year, to next winter. If I put fuel stabilizer in the tank and let it sit all summer and tried to start it up in like October or November or December, I'm certainly going to run into bad fuel problems. Again, it extends it a few months, but not completely. So, but I like to get a little in there, because even when I drain the whole fuel system, there's still going to be a couple of drops left in the tank. There's going to be a little residue left in the line, and there's certainly going to be a few drops mixed up in the carburetor and all the passages and stuff like that. And I like to have fuel stabilizer because it does help a little, but it's not going to totally protect you. So I like to have that little protection. Makes me feel better. So a dab will do you. I'm not going to show you the name of this stuff because I'm not getting paid, but it's commercially available fuel stabilizer. There's many different brands. A dab will do you. I'm going to use about a half a capful in this tank, which is about half full. It's probably about a quart, less than a quart of gas in the tank. And I'm going to put a half a capful of this fuel stabilizer stuff in it. Just a dab will do you. There we go. We're going to put the cap on. Now I'm going to shake the machine up a little bit to mix that fuel stabilizer into solution with the fuel that's in the tank. Now we're going to go to our next step, is actually draining this fuel system. We'll show you how to do it. It hasn't been started in like 3-4 months. First thing we're going to do is check we got fuel. We're good. We got about a half fuel tank. We're going to check we got engine oil. We're good. We're up to the fill line. There's nice clean oil. I'm going to prime the carburetor. I'm going to give it about 10 pumps on the primer bulb. And there's no fooling it. The sound actually changes on that primer bulb when you have enough fuel in it. And I also see it dripping out, which means it's going through the overflow, so we're good. The fuel bulb is primed. Full choke. I'm going to put the throttle on idle. And I'm actually going to pull start this baby. It does have an electric start, but I'm not fooling around. So I'm loosening up a little bit so I'm spraying myself. Okay, here we go. That sounded pretty good. Okay. I like to pull through to that compression stroke. Well, it sounded good, and now it doesn't. A little more throttle. Sounding good. I'm playing with the choke, trying to keep it running. This motor was always very finicky about the choke setting. Whoa, that was a cool sound. We're getting there. It's cool. It smokes. It's burning off the residual engine oil that's left in the combustion chamber. I had actually backed the choke all the way off during that. Just giving it a little choke. I gave it another pump on the fuel bulb. Now I'm going to start it up again. I basically want to get it up to operating temperature. I want to make sure that that little fuel stabilizer mixture we put in the gas tank gets through the whole fuel system. So we drain it out. Any residual fuel left in there indeed has stabilizer in it, which I feel in my head helps out. So let's get her started up again and bring her up to operating temperature. And I'm going to idle her down, but I just wanted to get up to operating temperature. Give a little choke and a pump on the bulb. Don't have an oil pump per se like an automobile engine would have, where they instantly get oil pressure. They have a little splasher on the bottom of the connecting rod that kind of just splashes oil haphazardly all over the inside of the crankcase, allowing all the moving parts to get their lubrication. So when you first start it up, you don't really want to go to full throttle right away, especially after it's been sitting for months like this one was. Which is why I started up and I built up from an idle, and now that I know the oil's evenly distributed around the engine and splashing all over like it's supposed to, now I can bring it up to full throttle. And then I'm going to idle her down and let her idle for a couple of minutes, bring her up to operating temp. It'll help to get her in the run position. This motor would be really cool on like a go-kart. Give her a little choke, another pump. But I love the torque in this little engine. For a one motor, man, this thing's got torque. You can see the whole machine twisting when I nail the throttle. Oh, this gets me going. I love engines. Oh, and just the smell of that running fuel. I wish you could smell it. Oh, come on, keep going. Who's calling me now? This engine's always been a very peculiar engine about not wanting to idle correctly unless she's up to operating temperature. So we're going to bring her up to operating temperature, then I'm going to settle idle all the way down, and at that point she idles great. But this small engine stuff really gets me excited. And then as she's warming up, I'm going to go around with a little like Teflon-based lubricant and get some of the moving parts on the actual snowblower itself. Not necessarily this small engine here that I just love this baby, but on my linkages and stuff like that. And also, you know what too? This fuel is actually from like November. So the gas is a little stale because it's March now. So in September, October, November, December, January, February, March. This is 90-day-old fuel, at least 90-day-old fuel. Plus it has fuel stabilizer in it. That's why she's not catching an idle completely 100%. But she is running real good considering those factors. You know what I want to do? I'm actually going to, I want to run one time in the electric start, so I'm going to run it with the electric start. Now I'm plugging in the electric start because I want to check that system too before I lay her up for storage. And it comes in really handy on those freezing cold mornings when it's like 10 degrees out and the wind is howling, you got like 2 feet of snow on the ground, the snow plow even hasn't been around yet. The electric start definitely is a bonus. Okay. All evenly distributed through the fuel system. We're going to drain the tank, we're going to drain the line, we're going to drain the carburetor bowl. I'll show you how to do that. But first, I'm going to get some shots of this auger working. But before we do that, I'm breaking out the grease gun. There's a couple of Zerk fittings, which are grease fittings, on the auger shaft. We're going to show you how to get those properly greased up. Just let me set up the shot for you. Well, there's our grease fitting. Now, first thing you want to do with a grease fitting is wipe it down. That way when we squirt the new grease in there, we don't push any dirt in. Alright, so you put the tip of this thing, I don't want to freak out the autofocus. There's the tip of it, and you press it down until it like kind of clicks. And then I'm going to pump the handle, and I'm going to watch at the end until grease starts coming out. And that means I got enough in there. And what I want to watch too is I want to watch the actual fitting to make sure that grease doesn't squirt out around the nozzle, which would mean that I had the tube on crooked, and I would correct it and keep squirting. So here we go. And I'm watching for the grease to come out. It should come out either end. There we go. It's starting to come out that bolt there. So any more that I squirted in, it would just keep coming out. So that means it's full. I don't know if you can see that. I'm going to set up a shot on that for you right now. Okay, so as I'm squirting the grease in there, it's starting to come out around that bolt, which means any additional I squirt in will just come out, so it's full. I'm just going to clean it up. And I'm going to repeat this on the other side of the auger. I'm going to repeat this process. Well, YouTube, I'll tell you, that grease gun is some pretty messy business in that whole greasing job. But if you're wearing some disposable gloves, it's a lot easier. Even with like mechanics hand soap, that grease is tough to get out. All the little cracks around your fingernail and stuff. So definitely wear some hand protection. Alright, so we got it all greased up. There's actually a crankcase in here that has a drain and a fill hole on it. And if I wanted to, I could actually drain out. It's probably like 90 weight gear oil. But I've inspected it and there's no leaks, so I'm just assuming that everything's good in there. Now I'm going to start her up one more time. I'm going to give you guys some shots of this auger spinning. And I want you to watch how the outside auger spins relatively slow. And the purpose of that is basically to scoop the snow and push it to the center, the secondary two-stage blower, the secondary auger, which spins really, really fast. So I'm going to get you set up on a shot of that. lockdown laundry soap container because it fits in here really good and it's going to catch the fuel when it comes out. And I'm just going to twist and pull this fuel line off. Whoops, and you can see the gasoline's coming out. My little trick to make sure I got all the fuel out of her that's possible is I'm taking a look in there and there's a couple of drops in the bottom of the tank. I have these extended needle nose pliers, and I'm taking a paper towel, I'm making like a big Q-tip out of it, and I'm sticking it in this gas tank, and I'm wiping the bottom of the tank, and I'm sopping up every last bit of fuel and debris that I can get. Which is not much. I've done a pretty good job. Not much came out. Few drops. I'm going to put this fuel line back on. Make sure everything's nice and clean. Now I'm going to flip the machine around and set up the next shot, which is using the tickle valve on the bottom of the carburetor float ball to get the last bit of fuel out of the carburetor itself, which is probably the most important spot to get the used fuel out of. Because if there had been used fuel in here, even for a couple of years, a fuel tank's relatively easy to clean out with fresh fuel. The carburetor, on the other hand, it's possible. It's a lot of work to get that baby clean. So let's set up that next shot for you. Nice tool, huh? Extended needle nose. Some of you may be asking, what indeed is he going to do with the used fuel? Well, I'll tell you what I'm going to do with it. I have a backpack blower that I use to clean up the property around here. It runs on 50-to-1 premix. I'm going to pour it in the premix container with this funnel here, and we're going to burn it up in the backpack blower over the next couple of weeks. Because it's springtime, we're going to be doing a lot of cleanup around here. And that way, we're not irresponsibly disposing of this used fuel in some environmentally unsafe manner. And just to orient yourselves, here she is, the muffler, and this is like a because it's a snowblower and it's using extreme cold conditions. They've built this case around the exhaust system that entraps the heat, that kind of preheats the carburetor, so she runs good in the freezing cold. This is the carburetor float ball here. This is that tickle valve I've been telling you about. There's that tickle valve on the bottom of the carburetor float ball. And if I merely press on this, fuel will start coming out. But I'm going to put my finger on it, and I'm going to be careful I don't get any gas on my... You see that? That's raw fuel right there. And that's it. It just takes like 5 seconds. There's like a couple of tablespoons of fuel in there. And that's it, I think. And the carburetor float ball is empty. Now, any residual fuel that may still be left in there is treated with fuel stabilizer. So it's not the end of the world, but you definitely want to get this stuff out of here before laying this machine up for storage. While you're here, subscribe, because I do all kind of handyman stuff. I also post a lot of entertaining videos that you'll find humorous. The one last thing I'm going to do is ask you to give me a thumbs up. The one last thing I'm going to do is ask you to subscribe to my channel. And this is serious here, YouTube users. Subscribe to my channel. I have all kinds of informative day-to-day life kind of stuff. Handyman, handywoman is all pertinent to my channel. And I also post a lot of entertaining stuff. So don't be scared. Hit that subscribe button. Give me a thumbs up while you're here on the second click. And if anybody has any questions or comments, post me a video response. They go up automatically. I don't have to approve them. Anything in the comment box below, I'll answer right away. I appreciate you guys watching and spending your time with me. The one last thing I'm going to do is I store my machine outside. It's a sheltered area, but it is outdoors. So I cover it up for the summer with this blue tarp, and I'm going to secure it with this twine. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed.